Hello and welcome to Red Seamus. You see, I'm wearing red this time. Yeah, if you've found this channel somehow, congratulations. I had no intention of promoting it, so this is just an outlet for me to complain about Manchester United. So yeah, welcome, and this is the first video on Red Seamus where I'm going to talk about my Premier League predictions. Because what better way to show I know nothing about football than getting 20 out of 20 wrong come the end of the season. I've also actually done two predictions at this table I've made right now, but I also have a Premier League predictions that I made on the 1st of July. And I kind of think it'd be interesting to compare and contrast them a little bit and see where I put teams in July versus where I'm putting teams a week before the season starts. I'm going to start with bottom of the league, a good place to start. And I believe the team that's going to finish bottom is Leeds United. Now, I know the common pick right now is to go for Burnley to finish bottom of the Premier League. And I kind of get it. Burnley had a very strong defence in the Championship last season, and that's pretty much the sole reason they went up. They don't have many goals in their team. But I'm looking at specifically Daniel Farke, who has just the most abysmal record in the Premier League. And yet, they did very well in the Championship last season. They got over 100 points. But we've seen over previous seasons that doing well in the Championship does not translate to doing well in the Premiership. And especially with Daniel Farke's sides, who have consistently won the Championship and been excellent in the Championship, and then have come to the Premiership and really struggled. I actually expect they're going to probably sack Daniel Farke very early into the season, and then they're going to bring a new manager in who's going to try and keep them up, and then that's not going to work. And yeah, I think they're going to finish bottom. They'll do better than Southampton did last season, but I still don't see them staying up. I think it's going to be a really tough season for Leeds. Which brings me to 19th, where I do have Burnley. I've kind of touched on this. I think there's obvious reasons that everyone is putting out there about why Burnley are going to struggle this season. And I can't see them staying up. I think it's going to be another tough season. I think Kyle Walker is a very good signing. I think bringing that Premier League experience into the team is kind of the edge I have on them over Leeds. But ultimately, they haven't done enough good business. Losing James Trafford is really going to cost them. We were talking about how good their defence was last season, and they've lost a key component of that defence. Dubravka's a good signing. Again, that's more Premier League experience. But I don't think they've done nearly enough to keep them up. And 19th is where I see them landing, I'm afraid. And as much as I would love for one of the promoted teams to come up, because this gap between the Premiership and the Championship is just getting far too big, I am resigned to the fact that Sunderland, I also think, are going to get relegated. In my original predictions from the 1st of July, I actually had West Ham here, so I was kind of, I think, hoping that one of the promoted teams could stay up, but I have changed my mind on this. I think the gap between the top 17 teams and the rest has just gotten too big. Every team I'm looking at, who could be the one that could go down with Leeds and Burnley, and I'm just they all feel too big now to go down. And I really just can't see past it. I think Sunderland have actually done really good business and are making the right strides to go up. So I'm hoping at least it will be close and maybe they can stay up. I think Xhaka is a really good signing. I think Adringa's a really good signing. I think they've done the right business to keep themselves up. You know, it's the way it is right now. If you want to come up from the Championship and stay up, you need to spend a lot of money. But I feel like Sunderland was significantly weaker than Leeds and Burnley last season, and therefore the business is only really catching them up to Leeds and Burnley's level. Whether they can turn this into good form in the Premiership, I don't think they can. I look at Ipswich and how they struggled last season. I look at teams before them that have had good teams and played interesting, exciting football, and I just don't think Sunderland are going to have what it takes. I hope I'm wrong. I think Xhaka as a captain, he's already come in and he's a captain of that team, is a great signing. But I also think losing Job is a really tough loss for them. And all in all, I just don't think Sunderland are going to have enough to stay up, unfortunately. Which brings me on to 17th, who just avoids relegation. And I have a bit of a shock here. I'm going for Bournemouth. I just want to say here, I really rate Iraola. I rate this Bournemouth team. And in my predictions for them last season, I had them in 7th. So I had them to overperform what everyone considered to be a really successful season for them. Yes, they have a good attack. They have a really strong attack. I think Semenyo is one of the best wingers in the league. Kluivert's really come on and impressed last season. Evan-Nilsson, I need to see more, but I think he's a good attacker. But their defense is just gone. And I don't think they've really re-recruited this defence. And I do think this is going to be a really tough season for Bournemouth. I think it's going to be tight. I think there's a real chance Bournemouth could go down this season, and that could be the shock relegation, a bit like when Leicester went down a few seasons ago. And if they sack him for finishing 17th, I think they'd be crazy. they need to back their manager, not just sell all the key players and all the structure in that team. They had a great spine and they've just got rid of it. Which brings me to 16th, where I'm actually putting West Ham, who I originally had to go down in my July 1st predictions. Now, I've changed my mind on this, but I still stand by everything I thought about West Ham. I don't think Graham Potter's going to be good enough, and I could see him being sacked before Christmas. They have the players that have done enough and have got enough experience of finishing in the top half of the Premier League to get the points, to get them over the line. I don't really have that much more to say about West Ham. Like, I think I kind of spoke my piece on it. I feel like they're probably, in my head, too big a club to go down now, which is a dangerous territory to get into. But they have a massive stadium. They have so many established Premier League proven players. And I can't see it happening anymore. I did a few months ago, but I can't see it happening now. So maybe I'll be wrong here, but I think West Ham are going to be fine this season. I still think Graham Potter's in trouble. If Fulkrug can come on this season and really prove to be the player they signed, they'll probably do way better than I predicted as well. But for now, that's where I see him. In 15th, I have Brentford. So Brentford, I feel like are becoming a bit of a common pick for people to say Brentford are going to go down. And I can see the logic behind it. I've flirted with putting Brentford into the relegation zone in this prediction. Thomas Frank has been such an important manager for them. They're selling Mbeumo. It looks like Wissa's going. Norgard has been such a key player for them, all going to bigger, no disrespect to them, Premier League clubs. But I just think Brentford are too smart to go down. They already had all of the backups for these players in their squad ready to go. Sharda's just going to come in and replace Mbeumo. It looks like Thiago's just going to come in and replace Wissa. They've already done the business to replace these players to keep them up. And I think they'll do enough. The biggest concern is obviously the loss of Thomas Frank and bringing in their set-piece coach as their manager, which I can't remember the last time a Premier League manager was doing their first ever job in management in the Premier League. It must have been Mikel Arteta, right? And I remember when he started at Arsenal, he really struggled to get going. So I could really see Brentford having a tough run at some point this season because of the lack of experience of their manager. But ultimately, I've been following Brentford since they were in League 2, League 1, the Championship. Like, I've watched them come up the leagues, and everything they do is just so smart. It's all based on the numbers. And I feel like every decision they have made has been right so far. They obviously think he's the best man, Keith Andrews, for the job. I think Dean Smith was their manager before Thomas Frank, and he was seen as overperforming. Thomas Frank came in and just outperformed everything Dean Smith was doing. And I think even if they do get it wrong and they manage to go down, I think Brentford are set up in a way where they will be straight back up and established in the Premier League to not go down again. I think they're a well-suited team to going down in a weird way. I don't know if that made any sense, but I feel like they're going to be fine even if they do go down this season. But I don't think they will. In 14th, I have Fulham. Now, I feel like a lot of people have Fulham higher, and I get why. Marco Silva has really proven himself as a good manager. They haven't really sold any key players, so they're just kind of going in with the same team as they had last season, same manager, so why would they do any worse? But I just feel like sometimes you need something. You need a fresh face in there. I think stability is great, and that's why I don't think they're even in the conversation to go down, but I do think this is going to be a harder season for them. Marco Silva has struggled in the Premier League before. I don't think this is going to be an all that impressive season from Fulham, unless there's some crazy last-minute investment put into the side before the end of the transfer window. And that brings me to 13th, where I have Nottingham Forest. To be honest, this is just all coming down to the fact they're in Europe. They're going to have basically twice as many games to play this season. And I don't think they have the squad depth to be prepared for that. I don't think Chris Wood is getting as many goals as he got last season. I said that all last season. I kept saying all season, I was like, Chris Wood is going to stop scoring goals eventually. And to be fair to him, he didn't. They have kept on to the main structure of their squad. They've only lost the Langer. So they've done a really good job of keeping hold of all these players. And their defence will be solid. And they'll probably just grind through enough results. But the big concern is with the Europa League, which I'm predicting to be slightly their downfall, is how much of an impact will that have on their squad? Will they get hit with injuries? And do they have a thick enough squad where they can actually rely on their reserves to come in and do a job for them in the case of, say, someone like Chris Wood gets injured? Is Owoni going to come in and do the job for them? Do they have the right backups to come in and shore up their defence when they need someone to come in? I think 13th is about right. It's kind of where they were towards the end of last season in terms of form, and that's kind of how I expect them to go on. Which brings me to 12th. Now, Everton are a bit of a confusing one because they have a manager that's proven time on time that he can take a squad that is not one of the best squads in the league and get them finishing 6th, 7th. You know, like he was doing it with West Ham, and before he was doing it with West Ham, he was doing it with Everton. But I think the one big unknown for Everton this season is the new stadium. Arsenal's first season at the Emirates, they struggled. They didn't immediately get results when they moved there. And they still haven't really brought the success to the Emirates that they brought to Highbury, even close to that. Spurs, as soon as they moved to their new stadium, they were struggling. Pochettino got sacked because of that. It's going to go against what I said, but I expect they're going to win their first game at the new stadium because everyone's going to be up for it. I just think in like the following fixtures, maybe 3 or 4, 5, 6, 7 games into their home ground, they're going to start finding playing at home more difficult. They're not going to be used to playing in this stadium. It's going to be a transitional season for them. And I think they can be quite happy with finishing 12th in a transitional season. And I think David Moyes can then try and build upon that in the next season or the season after. And I think he's the right man for the job. He's someone who understands the club, and then maybe in a few years' time they can move on to try and get a better manager than David Moyes. But also that could backfire for them in the way it kind of did with West Ham. They tried to move up a gear, and I think they've gone back. Which brings me to 11th, where I actually have Wolves. I feel like a lot of people have Wolves lower than this, but I disagree. I think Pereira is a really good manager who's been doing a really good job with this squad. I think the losses they've had are Cunha, Ait-Nouri. I don't think are actually going to affect them all that much. When Cunha was out suspended last season, they actually went on a really good run of form. Their form improved massively once they brought Pereira in last season, and I expect them to kind of continue on in that vein. Strand Larsen seems like a really good signing, and I'm kind of going off the basis that Strand Larsen is going to stay at Wolves this season. If they can keep him, that's going to be a really key player. I think he's going to be a talisman. I think he could genuinely be in the top 5 goal scorers in the league this season. And I think Wolves could have a really good season, pushing for top half. Which brings me to 10th, where I have Crystal Palace. I feel like this is kind of the same thing as Nottingham Forest. I think being in Europe is going to be harder for them. The advantage is because they're in the Conference League, they don't necessarily have to play their first team in Europe, so they can kind of save their first team for their league games and probably still get the results in Europe to get through the league stage. And I think they have a real chance in this Conference League. The teams in it are not particularly strong. And Crystal Palace have shown they can beat anyone on their day. They've beaten both Liverpool and Man City in cup finals very recently. I know they always finish like 12th, and that's kind of the ongoing bit with Crystal Palace. But under Glasner, it's been different. They've shown it's different. They're winning trophies under Glasner. They've just won their second title under him. It's kind of an unserious one with the Community Shield, which I know would have been important for Palace fans. When Glasner took over, he did really well in that second half of the season when he took charge, and I think they did finish 10th that season. This season, they really struggled again at the start of the season, but then the form again returned by the end of the season. And I think if Glasner can just get rid of that terrible patch of form that happened at the start of last season, he's shown consistently over a year and a half of managing Crystal Palace that he has them playing as well as a top half club. And I think this season we're going to see them become a top half club. The only scare is if they lose Eze. At the moment in time in recording this, Eze has not signed for anyone, and that could be the one thing that really hurts them this season. But with that said, I think 10th is really fair, and I really expect them to push on. I don't know if they're going to win anything this season, but they have a real chance. They have as good a chance as any other team in the league to win something this season, being in the Conference League. Which brings me to 9th, where I'm going to unfortunately have to place Manchester United. This is one that I have not changed from my first prediction to my now prediction. I just can't see it, guys. I don't know what to say. I kind of want to believe in Amorim, but I struggle to see where it's going. This formation doesn't seem to be working for us, and I'm someone who said we've been needing to play free at the back for years. I was saying under Solskjaer, we look better when we play with free at the back. Maguire suits playing in a free at the back system. Maybe I'm being overly pessimistic, but that Tottenham game has really scarred me, and I don't know how I can get faith in this manager after that result. Man United putting in that terrible performance in a cup final, it's just not what I want to see. And I can't base an entire season off one match. But I just don't see Cunha and Mbeumo getting nearly the amount of goals they got last season in this new system and in this new team. I think the pressures of playing for Man United are just incomparable to playing for Brentford and Wolves. Like, if you have a bad game for Brentford and Wolves, no one remembers it. You can have 5 bad games in a row for Brentford and Wolves, and people remember the one game afterwards where you score a brace. For Man United, you have 5 games in a row where you score, people remember the one game afterwards where you don't score. I hope they have the mentality and are ready to play for this team. But I struggle to see either of Cunha or Mbeumo getting 10 goals for Man United this season. It'll be an improvement on last season because we didn't have anyone getting 10 goals from those positions last season. But then it's only a marginal improvement. And that would also be reliant on Bruno to just have the season of his life to get us up here. And then we brought in Sesko just now at the week of recording this video. Maybe Sesko will prove me wrong. He's a big, fast, strong striker, and he can score headers. Maybe that's exactly what we need. Maybe Amorim has decided that Sesko's the guy. And I've got to support the manager, and I've got to support the player. I'm not going to turn him into a scapegoat before he's even played a game. I want Sesko to do well. I'm just looking at the underlying numbers, and I don't see it. I have supported Man United for long enough to know that a player having an awesome highlight reel from previous clubs means nothing. I've watched this happen with Pogba. I've watched Premier League proven players like Sanchez and Lukaku really struggle at this club. And I struggle to see us doing better than this. And I'm sorry, but if we finish 9th, I don't see how Amorim can stay in the job. Like, I just don't. Anything lower than 5th, and he should be sacked as far as I'm concerned. I'm sick of watching people do Premier League predictions and saying Man United could finish 6th or 7th this season. That'd be a really good season for them. That is not a good season. The fact that there are 4 teams breaking away and Man United aren't part of that is so embarrassing. But yeah, I'm not expecting much from Man United this season, I'm afraid. And that is where I'm going to put us in 9th. Which brings me to 8th, where I have Brighton. I think this might be an overshoot. I think a lot of people are predicting Brighton to be pretty good this season. And it's again because they haven't really made too many changes to their squad. They have lost João Pedro, but I don't think he was particularly that important to them last season. I'm almost trying to convince myself of like, oh yeah, Brighton will be here now. I don't really have too much reasoning actually why. In my original prediction, I had them in 7th as well. So I obviously, deep down somewhere, think Brighton are going to have a good season. I like their manager. I like their players. I like Baleba. I like Minter. I like Matoma. I like a lot of what's going on there. I just think they're going to have a solid season. They obviously could be about to lose Baleba, which again could really cost them if he goes to Man United, and that might make Man United and Brighton potentially switch places in this table. I feel kind of this is the one I'm least sure about almost now. Which brings me to 7th, where I have Tottenham. I think Thomas Frank is a fantastic manager. I kind of covered that with Brentford. And I think Tottenham have a good enough squad to not be near where they were finishing last season. I do worry about their depth still. I think that was a huge problem for them last season. They're still in Europe this season, which is going to take its toll on them. And I also don't think Thomas Frank's results are going to come in immediately. I think he's a project manager. I don't think we're going to see the best of this Tottenham side this season. But I think if they can get 7th place finish this season, they have all the potential to push on and get top 5, top 4 next season. And I think Thomas Frank is the man to move forward with. I think he's a really great manager and he's been waiting for this big job and he's got it. I know I just said that wouldn't be a good finish for Man United, but for Tottenham I think it would be. And yeah, I expect them to then kick on in future seasons from there. Which brings me to the top 6. And I feel like the easiest thing to do here is just essentially put them in the same order they came last year. That seems to be what most people are doing. Just go Aston Villa, Newcastle, Chelsea, Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool. But the chances of the top 6 finishing in the exact same order that they finished last year, I feel like is just astronomically impossible. And to be fair, my July 1st predictions are vastly different. So my first change is in 6th, I'm actually going for Newcastle. I had them in 3rd in my original predictions, which sounds ridiculous, but I genuinely believe they have one of the best teams in the Premier League. I think they had a better season than Chelsea last season, and I think they arguably have a better first 11 than Chelsea as well. Now, if you actually compare them, Chelsea only finished ahead of Newcastle on the final day. Up until that point, Newcastle seemed set on finishing ahead of Chelsea, and I also think they won a more prestigious trophy than Chelsea last year. So to say they finished ahead of Chelsea in the top 4, I don't think was a ridiculous statement. The problem is Alexander Isak. At the moment of recording this video, it looks like they're going to lose Alexander Isak to Liverpool. And if that happens, I just can't see them replacing him effectively quickly enough. And even if they don't lose him now, it feels like he's thrown his toys out the pram and kind of disrupted what would have been a harmonious dressing room. And I actually struggled to see them kind of turning it around from there and really having a great season with Isak at the helm. 6th is just kind of like an average of kind of, I saw them finishing as high as 3rd, now I could see them finishing as low as 9th, so I'm going for 6th as a nice little average there, and that's kind of where I see Newcastle landing. Which brings me to 5th, and I really just, I'm putting Chelsea in 5th. I'm so sorry, but I don't get where all this Chelsea hype is coming from. I don't know if it's just people taking the Club World Cup more seriously than I am. But I didn't watch a single game of the Club World Cup, and I don't know anyone who did. Because it isn't... yes, maybe in a cup competition, they can beat anyone on their day. I could see them going far in the Champions League for that reason. They could take out a PSG or Real Madrid over 2 legs, for sure. But in the league, there is no signs that they have any consistency. I think the Club World Cup is going to do far more harm than good for Chelsea. For example, going into this first game of the season, Crystal Palace have just had a month of pre-season and just played a semi-competitive match in the Community Shield. Chelsea are going in with having 3 weeks off, just played their first pre-season game the weekend before, and then going straight into the new season. For me, that reads as a Crystal Palace win, that game. They're playing 2 games a week, and there are going to be players that have had hardly any time off. We've already seen Colwill get out for basically the rest of the season with an ACL. I feel like stuff like that's just going to happen all season. I don't want to predict Chelsea are going to have all sorts of horrible injuries, because that's not the kind of thing you want to predict. But I think this season's going to be difficult. They're lucky they have the best depth maybe of any team in the league, and therefore they will probably be fine. But I can't see this drastic improvement on last season, which some people are expecting. And in my original predictions from July, I actually had Man City in 4th, obviously with Newcastle in 3rd. But I'm going to make an adjustment there and put Aston Villa in 4th this season. Seems like a pretty bold play, but Villa finished 4th 2 seasons ago. And unlike most teams that get European football sprung upon them like Villa did, they didn't really get hurt by it. They had a decent run in the Champions League. And if it wasn't for what was almost a robbery, where they were kind of robbed of their goal by Bayern at the end, it was a goal. It should have counted. I'm a Man United fan. I 100% agree. And if that goal had counted, I assume they would have probably gone on to win that game. And if they had gone on to win that game, they would have finished 5th this season and be in the Champions League next year. Villa, basically, off a poor decision, have been cost back-to-back Champions Leagues. And I don't really see them declining. Which brings me to 3rd. And I can't believe this has gotten to the point after just 1 bad season. But I'm going to say it, Man City are 3rd favourites to win the league this season. And I see them finishing 3rd and actually still some way off Arsenal and Liverpool going into this season. I don't want to read into last season too much. Obviously, Rodri was out for the season and they went on a terrible run of form and still managed to finish 3rd and actually not too far behind Arsenal. So logic would dictate they don't have that terrible run of form. Rodri doesn't get injured and they do better this season. But I just think their team overall has declined also going into this season. De Bruyne has been such a key player for them in all of their title wins in the last 10 years, pretty much. And I just think losing him is a massive loss. They've replaced him with Cherki. And I don't think you can just replace someone like that overnight. It reminds me of when Man United tried to replace Ronaldo with Owen and Overton and Valencia. It just, something like that doesn't work. And United didn't do terribly in the 2009-10 season. They finished 2nd. But, they were a significant decline from the season before. As far as I'm concerned, I don't see City actually coming that close to Man City and Liverpool. I don't think they're going to go on a terrible run like they did last season. But I think over the course of the season, I think the consistency will be worse. I think they'll have a similar points tally to what they did last season, to be honest. Bringing me to 2nd and 1st, I'll do them together. I believe it's going to be Arsenal in 2nd and Liverpool in 1st. Meaning it's the same top 3 as last season. And I found this one hard. In my original predictions, again, I had Arsenal 1st and Liverpool 2nd. That was because I thought Arsenal had been missing this striker for years. I thought this is the one piece they've been missing. I thought the same about Liverpool last season. Liverpool last season, I felt they'd been missing a defensive mid basically ever since Fabinho had gone. That's why Klopp struggled with that team in that final season. That's why I thought they weren't going to win the league last season. And then Slot just did this brilliant thing, turning Gravenberch into a CDM and making him basically the best CDM in the league. I don't really know how he did that. And it feels like Arsenal have been this one piece away from success, and we've been talking about it for years. They are that striker away from success. They have the best defense in the league. I don't think that's a fact, basically. Last 2 seasons, they have conceded the least amount of goals. on both of them. And it's not by like one or two. They've been conceding the least amount of goals by like 5 goals in the last 2 seasons. They say defense wins you titles. The logic would be eventually it's going to go right for Arsenal, and I think they were hard done by last season with their injuries. They didn't really catch a break where they had a chance to have a run at the league because City were obviously down and out. I don't actually know how Gyökeres is going to do in this Arsenal team. I rate Gyökeres. He's actually the guy I wanted up front for United. Obviously, he didn't want to come. Arsenal, I think, have got a great player on their hands, and he's obviously proven that with a proven goals record in Portugal, which I know some people are going, oh, it's the Portuguese league. In my experience, I've found that Portuguese players seem to do quite well when they come to the Premier League, and it's not the same thing I see when players come from the German league, which is why I'm nervous about Sesko. It's like when City brought in Haaland. Like, I don't know if it actually fits Arteta's system in the way I didn't think Haaland really fit Guardiola's system, but there is one guarantee. Even if the standard of football drops, they are gonna score more goals, and more goals means they will win more games, and therefore they are giving themselves a better chance of the title because they have the best defence in the league, and they're also got a goal scorer now. You know, the pieces are there. The one thing is if Liverpool buy Alexander Isak, I can't see past Liverpool if they sign Alexander Isak, and that's why I've made the change. That's the sole reason. They've already got the best team in the league in almost every other area. They're the current champions. They're on a high, and they're about to bring in who was the best striker in the league last season. I'll concede, if Liverpool don't have Isak, I'm not as confident on them winning the league, but I actually still think they'll do it. They've brought in Wirtz, who is, in my opinion, one of the best players in the world right now. Ekitike, I love. I've always used him on Football Manager, and I hate that he's gone to Liverpool. Genuinely one of my favourite players in Football Manager for years now. And if they get Isak, that's just like the cherry on top. I don't see how anyone will come close to them if they have Isak. Without Isak, I think it goes close. And I am kind of going with that. I think they're going to push Liverpool a lot closer than they did last season. I think there's going to be almost shades of this 1990 season where Liverpool and Arsenal went all the way to the final day. And I hope it does go close. I hope they don't win it. I hope Arsenal win the league desperately. But that is how I see this season going. And yeah, I'm going to find out now if there's an audience for Red Seamus, because I really don't think there is. I don't think anyone who's watching my current channel is going to come over here and be like, yes, this is the kind of videos I want to see from Seamus. But for that small minority, the 5 of you that have watched this video and have enjoyed what I had to say, and also for the 5 of you that have watched this video and hated everything I had to say, the 10 of you, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy Red Seamus. I hope you got to enjoy what I'm going to post on here. I'm just going to try and sit down and talk about stuff. I've got so many thoughts that I need to share, and I just need to vent. Last season was too much for me, and I need an outlet to vent about Man United on here. So here we are. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, I did that the wrong way around. See you next time.